Step into realms where the heart takes flight, where strategy meets the edge of night. The dungeons, dragons, and psychology parts. Prepare your mind. Now be our guest.
Imagine this. You're playing a devout cleric, a cleric who's supposed to be good, noble, selfless, committed to protecting the innocent. You're in a very tense battle with your companions against a band of goblins. And in a desperate move, you cast Flame Strike. It's a spectacular spell. The column of flame descends in the radius. You save the party. But as the flames die, you see a small, half-burned and no longer living goblin child laying in the rubble. Does that twist your gut? It does mine. That feeling that your character, who is supposed to be good, just committed a terrible act, that's something called cognitive dissonance. I'm Robert Walker, author of Session Zero, the DMG to writing great campaigns in any system, and the Player's Handbook to real life. And this is my show, where I teach collaborative storytellers how to have more immersive campaigns using psychology. I just want to welcome you back, Cyclothids. Today we're delving into the heart of what makes our characters feel real, that nagging, uncomfortable feeling we get when our hero does something that feels wrong or out of place. That is what cognitive dissonance is. It's a powerful psychological concept, and it can transform your role-playing from a simple game that's stats and dice to a more human, more immersive story. So cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort that we experience when we hold two or more conflicting beliefs or values at the same time, or we try to rationalize them. The word cognition, of course, simply means thoughts or beliefs, and dissonance means a lack of harmony or a discordance. Our brains naturally hate this feeling of discomfort. We're hardwired to seek consistency. So when our actions don't align with our beliefs, we feel motivated to find a way to reduce that comfort. That is sort of what the essence of cognitive dissonance is we want to find a way to relieve that discomfort. So a real world example of this might be a person who believes and preaches and living a healthy lifestyle, but they also happen to be a smoker. They have two conflicting conditions. Smoking is bad for my health, they might tell themselves, and I'm a smoker. So to reduce that cognitive dissonance, they have a few options. They could change their actions, like they could quit smoking, which is often the hardest part. They could change their belief. They could rationalize their behavior by telling themselves sometimes it's not that bad, or my grandfather lived to be 90 while smoking his entire life, so they could find a rationale for it in that way. Or they could add a new belief. They could tell themselves that they need to smoke because it reduces their stress. It makes them feel more calm. It helps them relax after very tense moments. These are all ways of reducing that dissonance and making those two conflicting ideas feel more comfortable. But it can also happen in tabletop games. Your characters' cognitions are their beliefs, their alignment, their values, and their actions are the choices that they make during the game. That tension between the two is where that magic of cognitive dissonance happens. You can also feel it if you're playing a character who is not in line with what your own personal beliefs are. You can feel that sense of cognitive dissonance as well as you're trying to act the way your character would act when it's contrary to the way that you would act if you were in a situation. So let's look back at our cleric. That player feels the cognitive dissonance because their character's action of causing a child to die clashes with their character's core belief. that is being a good person, noble and virtuous. It's not a failure of role-playing. This is an opportunity. Now, think of how the player or the character might resolve this dissonance in the game. Well, they could change their character's future actions. The cleric, horrified by what they have done, might swear off spells like Firestorm, Flame Strike, anything that might catch an innocent in its radius. They might become more cautious and try to find peaceful solutions to more problems, even if it means risking their own life. This path could lead to a character who's marked by their past and constantly trying to strive to be better. They could change their character's beliefs. They might rationalize their actions by making blanket statements like goblins are all evil, they might tell themselves, or that child would have grown up to be evil too. It's a justification and not really based in fact, obviously, but over time, those sort of things can shift a character's alignment. A single terrible act could be the very first step on a journey towards a more neutral or even an evil character. So it can be that fall from grace moment, perhaps. And it's not just hypothetical. I mean, think about some of the classic D&D archetypes. There's that rogue with the heart of gold, the Robin Hood, so to speak. It's their nature to steal from the wealthy and at the same time genuinely want to do good. Well, what happens when they have to, say, steal from someone who's innocent in order to protect the party, or steal from an orphanage? The dissonance between their desire to be good and the actions that they are familiar with taking, that they have already justified as doing for good, that can create an internal conflict as well. So do they find a way to give the money back, or do they vow to never steal from the innocent again? You also have the Oathbreaker Paladin. This is perhaps the ultimate example of cognitive dissonance in D&D. The Paladin's core beliefs are enshrined in their sacred oath. When they break that oath, say by lying to save their friend from the city guard, or whatever the case may be, the dissonance can be so great that it shatters their connection to their deity. So to resolve this, they either have to atone and restore their oath, or embrace a new identity as an oath breaker, justifying their actions and finding power down a different path. So it doesn't have to be just about big, dramatic moments. This is all about small choices too. It's about the ranger who loves nature but finds themselves feeling a whole forest needs to be cleared to put a fortress up to protect the world from some sort of evil that's coming from within. It's a wizard who values knowledge but has to destroy an ancient book to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. There are countless ways that you can harness this power of cognitive dissonance, that you can bring it into your stories so that your stories aren't just two-dimensional. It makes them more living, more breathing. It makes your characters feel more like they're real people when they have to struggle with internal conflicts. We all have to struggle with internal conflicts all the time. So recognizing moments in your story where that happens for your characters makes your characters feel more real, which adds depth to your storytelling just by allowing your players to sit with these feelings and decide what it is that they have to do. So I would encourage you to find ways to embrace this cognitive dissonance, to even set up scenarios in which your players may have to find a balance between their actions and their values, or have the opportunity to change one or the other. Those can be really, really powerful role-playing moments that carry your game forward and make it very memorable. With that, let's move on to tricks of the trade. So, how can you as a player or a dungeon master use this concept to enhance your game? Let's talk about players first. First, define your character's cognitions. Before the first session, don't just write chaotic good in your alignment. Think about what your character's core beliefs are. Do they believe that life is sacred? Do they believe that lies are always wrong? Do they believe that the end justifies the means? Having a clear baseline of what your character's cognitions are will make it easier to spot when your actions don't align with those values. As a player, it can be important to also lean into the discomfort. When you feel that gut punch of dissonance, don't just brush it off. Pause for a moment. Describe how your character is feeling, the guilt, the rationalization, the regret. That discomfort, it's not a sign of failure. It's a sign of compelling narrative, and that narrative is unfolding. And as you embrace that, you are helping add to the DM's story and making it just more palpable for the rest of the party. It can also be really helpful to journal from your character's perspective. After a session where the character has made a tough choice, just take a minute and write down their thoughts. Did they think I had to do it? The child would have grown up to be a threat. Or do they think I'm a hero and a hero has to make tough choices? Or do they think I have made a terrible mistake and been a failure? I have to change the way I act in the future. Whatever it is, that act of realization is a form of dissonance reduction, and it can become a fantastic piece of your character's backstory. So for dungeon masters, create dilemmas, not just choices. Don't just give your players a good option and a bad option. Create situations where every option requires the character to compromise a core belief. For example, the only way to save a village from burning down is to burn down a sacred grove as a fire line. And the party druid may have been sworn to protect it. So what do they do in that scenario? Another thing you can do is you can use the NPCs as mirrors for the characters. What this means is to have NPCs directly confront your characters about their dissonant actions. Like a guard might mention, I can't believe a hero would do something so cruel, or say something like, I don't believe you call yourself an honorable knight when you lie to the king. Things like that make an external confrontation in the story that forces the player to engage with the dissonance rather than just letting it fade away. It makes that part of the story that they have embraced an action that they don't normally agree with in their values. And then the last thing I would say you want to do is to ensure long-term consequences. A character's dissonant actions shouldn't just disappear. The cleric who accidentally killed the child might gain a reputation as a butcher in that region, or a ranger who cut down a part of the forest might find that nature spirits refuse to help them when they're in that area. You can have all sorts of consequences that could be a single uncomfortable moment into character-defining arcs, and that's another really powerful way to enhance your storytelling. The most memorable stories are never black and white. They live in the gray areas. I'm sure you've seen and heard so much lately, especially with the popularity of book talk, about morally gray characters. These really are the most interesting characters. It's the difficult decisions and the consequences of actions that make those characters interesting. So by using cognitive dissonance, you can stop just playing a character and start embodying the character. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do want to take just a moment and remind you all that we've got a lot of stuff coming up, and I definitely could use your support. So if you can, jump on Patreon, become a patron, or you can get onto the Etsy store and support our products that way by buying merchandise of the show or any of the other interesting, fun gaming stuff. We also have some pet lovers stuff on there as well, and just all sorts of things. You can find links for all of that in our link tree, or you can just find them in the show notes below. I really, really appreciate that you have all been so patient with me getting back to the show, and I'm very excited to be back. It has been a while, but as things are moving forward, I'm very excited about this becoming even bigger than it was before and really going in a awesome new direction. So thank you all so much for being there. Cyclothids, you are truly the reason that the show exists and why I want it to keep growing and keep going on. So until next time, we'll see you next session.